Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 426, Mythology-themed games.
Welcome, citizens of Meeple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go to their website, check out their amazing products. They have toppers, they have mats, they have dice trays, they have table legs, they have dining leaves, they have toppers, they have mats. Did I mention that they're awesome? Enhance every game night you have with a game topper. We love the toppers that we have. We use them on a weekly basis, sometimes bi-weekly. Their mats are amazing. The colors are vibrant. The details are superb. And the selection is quite wide.
Yeah, they've come out with some new gorgeous mats. Just the last Kickstarter. Very gorgeous mats.
Go check them out. GameToppersLLC.com.
And then jump over to our website, MeepleNation.com. We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Dave Holliday.
I'm Nathan Howard.
And I am Andy Holliday.
When you're over there on our website, check out some of our blogs. Let us know what you think. We love to get your comments. We've got photos there, links to past episodes, bios for each of us. Email us with any thoughts, any questions, anything you like there at meeplenation@gmail.com. And then there's also a link there to our Patreon account. We love the support that we've gotten from many of you, and we hope that you'll continue to love us enough to want to help support us that way. But one thing that we'd love as well is let us know, give us some ideas on what is some bonus content that you'd like to see us do.
And I don't know if many of you know, there is at the end of almost every episode, after the music, there are some bloopers that's been going on for most of the year so far. Not always are they there. Sometimes we don't mess things up. This episode, there's definitely bloopers.
You want to check that out, listen to the very end, and you'll catch some fun content that way. And just overall, a great, great, great big thank you.
This week, we are discussing some games that are based on mythology. Taken that mythology and turned it into an awesome game. Kind of a shorter list as we go into all these. We won't be doing 3-episode run on it, but we will be talking about one game next week. We will be talking about Ankh, Gods of Egypt, and our experience with that. Andy and I really love that game. We are going to jump into some of these other mythology games. So they can vary from god mythologies to King Arthur to island spirits. So let's kick off. King Arthur is one of my favorite mythology types. It's not necessarily a mythology, but it does fall into that category. Shadows over Camelot is an older game.
Such a good game. I have 2 copies of it.
You know, I used to have a copy of it, but my copy came up missing. Go to Amazon or eBay and see if I can find something.
Or to Andy's house.
Maybe Andy's house.
I could probably loan you one.
Maybe, because it is on my 10 for 10.
Oh, is it?
I'll need to borrow one of your copies.
I'm curious, off topic a little bit. Did you put that on your 10 for 10 just to get your game back?
No, I'll play yours if needs be. Someday I'd like my game back, maybe. Not maybe, yeah. So, yeah, I want my game back at some point.
Okay.
It's one of my top 25 games for sure. But Shadows over Camelot is my number 2 favorite hidden role game. We're playing of Knights of the Round Table. One of you is going to be a traitor, possibly 2 of you, and you are going on quests within Camelot's borders. Battle the Dark Knight, you have to go battle the dragon, you have to battle the Saxons and the Picts, search for the Grail. All these quests are on different places of the board. Very few of these can you do on your own. You need to get your team to work together. If you go after Lancelot's armor, everybody thinks that is an instant traitor mark. But if you are the traitor, that is probably one of the best things that you can do. However, if you're loyal, that's also one of the best things that you can do so that it doesn't end up in the traitor's hands.
It's also extremely difficult to get.
It is, yeah. So you have to be set up. You have to have some sets of cards. If you're going to go there, you want to make sure that you have some of those from the get-go.
The thing is it has to be done soon, though, because if not, you're going to lose the opportunity, right, as those bad cards keep coming up with those spots. But then the other thing I just wanted to say is every time, either when we're playing it or talking about this game, when you talk about the Dark Knight, all I can think of is the Black Knight from Monty Python.
I always think about that too.
The great thing is if you get the Merlin's Company expansion, if you can find that, there's cards that Merlin will travel with you, and there's always a benefit if Merlin's at your location. When you're there at the start of your turn, you get a draw card, which is huge, but every one of those Merlin Travels cards has a line that is from Monty Python.
Oh, really?
And it's a great touch, and some of the cards that, Merlin Travels or whatever, but nothing happens with the card. And it's like, a smashing scene with some beautiful scenery. Just the little touches that are in there, because it's natural to kind of go to that Monty Python with this. Shadows of Camelot is a great game. I love it because at the first of your turn, you have to do something bad. You either add a siege engine to in front of the castle, or you draw one of the black cards, resolve that, or you lose a life point. And everybody's going to start losing life points at first, but it gets to a point where you can't. You got to do something. You got to either put out a siege engine or draw those cards. And some of those cards are okay. Some of those cards are very damaging. Will make the game much more difficult as you progress through it.
And they're hard to overcome, too.
Yeah, I'm just going to edit you out. Actually, I'll probably leave that out. I've always enjoyed this game. If you complete a quest, you're going to get a reward. There's going to be cards. Part of that reward is you're going to put swords on the round table. And at the end of the game, you want to have more white swords than dark swords. If there's more dark swords, then the trader or traders have won. Otherwise, the loyal knights have won. This game's been around since 2005. I think I've owned my game pretty much since then. Played it numbers of times. It's kind of funny. We have some people who like Battlestar Galactica, but they don't like Shadows over Camelot. In my opinion, the games are both very similar. Dennis, your brother Dave, is one of them that he loves Battlestar Galactica, but he hates Shadows over Camelot. And I think the reason he hates it is he had lost too much life and then went on a quest and lost his last life. And that was like on turn 4. Then he just had to sit and do something else while the rest of us play the game. That player elimination is not a fun thing, especially in a longer game. There was no Xbox to go play. Personally, enjoy Shadows over Camelot.
I think it's more brutal than Battlestar Galactica.
You think so?
I do. The amount of stuff that's going on and getting put on the board and bounce from location to location just to try to mitigate the game. The fact that there's something bad that happens, usually you want that to be predictable, so it's very tempting to throw that siege engine on or lose your life points at the beginning of the game. Siege engines get really tempting to throw on because you don't know what black card's coming up, and it can be devastating. The last time I played this, James Heath was the trader, and he was the one that went to go get rid of siege engines. We thought, oh, James is in, he's going to get rid of that siege engine. Go ahead and put one more siege engine on there. There was one space left, and on his turn, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw a siege engine on. And, it ended up ending the game, and he ended up winning. There's sometimes where that game is just, it is brutal. I've played Battlestar Galactica maybe 3 times, and I didn't get that same feeling.
Battlestar, I mean, you get the chance, all those Cylons, and they get on the board, and then you can jump away, which is the premise of the movie, right? The overwhelming forces come against you, and the only option you have is to run away. I think that actually picks up the theme of the show. Not that I ever actually watched the new show, but from what I remember of the old show, that's what it always seemed. Under dire circumstances, and the best thing they can do is bravely run away.
All I remember from the show is DB.
Buck Rogers.
I know.
Okay.
But that's still all I can remember from the show.
Daggett was the name of the robot dog or bear or whatever it was.
Honestly, not a big fan of either of those games. The last time I played Shadows, I actually enjoyed it more than I did back in the day. But I think that partially is because back in the day, we played it a lot. Wasn't really my style, and the fact that we played it all the time. Let's play some of these other games that are cooler.
Well, and I think you and I are of like mind on that, Dave. You and I don't really lean towards hidden role games as much anyway.
Right.
So let's talk about a game you do like. I'm pretty sure there's a game on this list that I know Dave likes, and that would be Dice Forge. Dice Forge dice crafter game, I guess, dice builder game. You're changing the die faces. You start with 2 dice. Kind of like a deck builder, you have basic cards, kind of garbage cards in your starting deck, and you're trying to upgrade your deck and maybe even cull some of those crappy cards that you start with. As you're building that deck up and getting better cards, you can do more on your turn. Dice Forge is very similar, but it's more like what I would compare it more to a card crafting game. The number of dice you roll doesn't change, but faces on your dice change.
That idea alone, when you first told me about that, immediately I was so excited to play that game because I think that's one of the coolest things that has happened in a game in a long time.
Yeah, I would agree. And the theme's cool. I think what shines most in it is the dice crafting part of it. It is a mythological, Greek mythology themed game. You have different islands. Essentially what you are is you're competing to please the gods, and you have different actions you can do. You can go to the temple and you can purchase faces for your dice, or you can go to one of the islands and compete in one of the competitions on each island. And there are 2 competitions on most islands. There's the large island that has 3. You're going to be spending sunstones and moonstones, and those are the resources. There's gold, sunstones, and moonstones that you produce on your dice, and you spend those in the competition. That's going to give you a card that will either give you points, it can give you an ability that you get to activate every round. Sometimes it can actually give you die faces that you can use. Sometimes it will be just a one-time effect, you gain the benefit, and then it's just points. But there's a large variety of cards, lots of different combinations that you can do. It's such a great game.
Performing those heroic feats at the islands, the cards that you talk about, that represents the different heroic feats that you perform at the different islands. And there are quite a few. And I like it when you get different combinations in there so that you can try different things and have a little bit of a different game. One thing that Doug, our friend Doug, pointed out to me, because we've played it several times online together now, he and Nathan and I, but we've just been playing with the same cards over and over again and not including any expansions or anything. And he pointed out, I don't really love the fact that there's one of the cheap ones that you can get extends how much you can store. Because you have a maximum that you can store of gold and of sunstone and moonstone. You have to spend it on your turn, but there's little extensions that you can get for your storage that makes it so you can store a whole bunch more, which that's always in the game, I believe.
It's not always in the game, but
okay.
It may always be in the base game. Always mix it up. I've got the expansion, so
yeah, it's been a long time, but it seems like everybody has to do. It's like one of those things like you have to do this to win kind of a thing, which you don't. I've seen it happen where somebody wins that didn't get any of those at all. And they're limited, right? So you only have 3 of them in a 3-person game. If one person manages to get 2 of those, that can be hugely advantageous.
Especially if you have things that will allow you to spend those resources for points, or spend gold, for example, for points or something like that. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can store a lot, especially because towards the end of the game, gold basically becomes worthless. Mm-hmm. It's really the sunstones and moonstones you're after once you have your dice upgraded, unless you have something that you can spend that gold on to get points. One other thing about this game that I really like, players can stay engaged when it's not their turn. So at the beginning of everybody's turn, everybody gets to roll their dice, and everybody gains resources for those dice. It's called Divine Blessings. You get Divine Blessings at the beginning of every single player's turn,
right,
and it will help you get set up for your next turn. So you have more resources and can maybe perform some of those more expensive heroic feats or get some of those more expensive die faces.
Right. To your point of staying engaged, is this just a quick game anyway?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're involved in the other people's turns, but those turns also don't take long. It's a game where you're never really out of the loop in what's going on.
And this is one of those that I would really recommend getting the expansion. Part of the expansion, it has a board. It's dual-sided, so it kind of can change the game up of what you want to do. There's the labyrinth side. You're trying to go through the labyrinth, and you gain different bonuses as you're moving your token through the labyrinth. There's also the Titan side, which is my favorite side to play on. Basically, either siding with the Titans or you're siding with the Olympian gods. If you're siding with the Titans, you're going to get negative points at the end of the game, but you're getting Titan shards, which Titan shards are wild resources. You can use them as either sunstones or moonstones, which is so incredibly helpful, especially at the beginning of the game. It allows you to get up into those other heroic feats that are maybe more expensive, or maybe you've upgraded your dice to where you're getting lots of sunstones, but you can't get into the moonstone side of the board. That opens all that up for you. That being said, if you side with the Olympian gods, you're going to get more points. You get positive points and gold that's going to get added to your board. decide what you want to do, or you can kind of try to play the middle, gain a little bit of favor from the Olympian gods. You go a little bit on the side of the Titans to get some Titan shards, and you try to play that middle, and then towards the end of the game, typically people try to jump up on that god side to try to get points. The die faces that get added to that with the heroic feats and the different cards that are just added to the game, I think really enriches the game. I think it's definitely worth getting. If you are a fan of Dice Forge and don't have the expansion, I would definitely pick it up.
On that note, if you are a fan of dice and dice rolling, this is a must-have game.
Even like card crafting or deck builder games, I would definitely recommend this game.
So apparently I really like out-of-print games, because I'm going to talk about another game that I very much enjoy that is based in this folklore or mythology, and that is Beowulf the Legend. 2 to 5 player game, plays in about 60 minutes. Andy, I got you to play this game last year.
You did, and it was fun.
I remember you saying when we talked about it that you had looked at this game in the store and felt that it was very linear, which it is. By linear, I mean it's one path. We kind of run into the same issue with Great Western Trail, but there is a complexity within the game. And as you're following the story, and this game follows the tale of Beowulf, battling Grendel, the sea hag, battling the dragon. The premise of the story is you are following along with Beowulf as an assistant and to be able to take over his kingdom after him. So you follow Beowulf through these trials. You're going to compete and you're going to gain scrolls, you're going to gain money, and you can spend this to gain influence. It's a bidding game. There's several times where you're bidding in the game. Sometimes you're bidding with a one-time draw. You're putting down your tokens or your cards, saying this is what I'm bidding, and whoever is the highest bidder wins. Other times it has round-robin bidding where you're going to play a card, and then the next person has to play a card to stay in. You're going to continue to play cards until eventually you're the last person to stay in the round. And the nice thing about it is there's this risk that you can do, and you can draw the top 2 cards of the draw deck. And if one of those symbols matches the required symbol, then you just simply add that to the stack and you don't have to add anything from your hand. It's a very tight hand management game. If you're losing cards, that puts you at a very big disadvantage. So ideally, would love to be able to risk every time and be successful. However, if you're unsuccessful, then you're out of that bid. Then you end up taking whichever is the lowest spot that's still available. There's different types of quests that Beowulf is going to overcome. And as you go with Beowulf, you reap some of those benefits in supporting him. I've always thought the game was very well done. It's one that has been a favorite of mine. I had to put it on my 10x1 last year to get it played, and I'm anxious to play it again. It played quick. It's kind of funny, though, to go back and to refresh on rules. We complain about a game that has bad rules now, but you look back at those games, 2005 like this game, around that whole same era.
Yeah, rules have come a long way since then. No doubt about it.
Beowulf the Legend is a great game. If you find it at any flea market, at a convention, I would strongly recommend picking it up. It's going to be one that's very tough to find. It's not as popular as like Shadows over Camelot, so it isn't as often resold. But if you find it, I would recommend picking up Beowulf the Legend.
One of the first games I picked up was based on a real-time strategy game called Age of Mythology.
I was hoping we'd talk about this one.
I loved the computer game Age of Mythology. It was so much fun. Because of that, I saw the board game, and we played this so much. Like I said, it was one of my first board games, my first real board game. I loved it. So they tried to bring the same feel of the real-time strategy in a board game setting. So you're finding mines and trying to get resources, lumber by cutting forests. You're trying to collect those resources and build armies up, and the battle system is really quick. It's kind of unique. The cards that you play and dice, and each individual is going to play a different mythology. There's the Egyptians, there's the Norse mythology, there's the Greek mythology. Just like the video game, you pick a faction basically, and it's based on a different set of mythology. I loved this game. It's been a long time since I've played it. We probably ought to get it to the table.
We definitely should play this one again.
I believe it's out of print, but you think I saw it on eBay for like $40. So it's not like it's super expensive. It looks like it's fairly easy to find. Real-time strategy computer games are something that you like. This may be something to be interested in and get something to the table that you can play face-to-face with someone and still get kind of that feel of a real-time strategy, but in a board game setting.
Or if there's somebody that you know that loves real-time strategy computer game, but is not necessarily a big board gamer, maybe this is a good way to get them into the hobby.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, Nathan, we talked about a game that you and I both really enjoy. That's Mythic Battles Pantheon.
I really enjoyed this game. I'd very much like to play it again.
Awkward.
Awesome.
Sorry. Not with you, Dave. I love you, but... No, I think if Dave had the opportunity to review and look over everything well in advance...
With like a month to decide.
Dave likes spreadsheets almost as much as I do. If he could go ahead and view that so that he could... That whole drafting aspect of the game, I mean, it sounds disrespectful, Dave, but no, disrespect is intended. I actually envy your mind sometimes. Ability to analyze and see details that, to be honest, I'm just too impatient to...
See combinations, right?
Yeah,
Things
I'm
that
just too
work well.
impatient to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why often I lose, so... Mythic Battles Pantheon was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I got my butt kicked, but I'm anxious to play it again, very much so.
Such an epic game. Like you alluded to, Nathan, the sheer content of this game, I don't even think I have half of what's available. There is a lot of content, a lot of different units and different abilities, and just the sheer variety of how these different abilities and these different heroes and mythical monsters. And right now there's Greek gods, but they're also coming out with the Norse gods and the Egyptian gods. There's a Kickstarter that happened at the end of last year, is bringing different mythology besides just Greek mythology into it. Just the different combinations you can get from all the different abilities of the soldiers to the heroes and monsters, deities. It's awesome. And the fact that there's 3D terrain. Playing on a board that has 3D terrain, you interact with. Certain heroes, like Hercules, he can pick up a tree and chuck it and damage a unit in an adjacent area. Forest areas get a bonus to defense. If you're in the ruins areas, then it's going to affect melee combat. Plus, there's some creatures that have flying that will be able to actually go up on top of the rocks and have that higher ground and get a bonus to their attacks. It's such a great game. And I don't know, I just think they've done a good job with it. To have something be that epic but not take forever to play, I think it's very well done.
Nidavellir is a cool game.
All right, moving on.
It's a fantastic game, and it comes up on Board Game Geek, so I'm going to roll with it.
Are you talking about Nidavellir?
I am talking about Nidavellir.
Nidavellir is based on Norse mythology.
Looking at it, I thought, okay, that game looks cool, and then I found out it was a bidding game, very heavily a bidding game, and I was like, ugh, I'm not a big fan of bidding games, but I love this one a lot. I've probably played this game more than anything else in the last couple of months. Most of that is online with Nathan, with Doug. It's just a really good game. Going to 3 different taverns and bidding to hire the dwarves that are available in these taverns. And there's dwarves from different factions. I don't know if you want to call them factions, but there's miners, there's scouts, warriors, hunters, and the blue. Everybody will get the chance to either hire a dwarf or increase the value of one of their coins, and the coins are what you use to bid. You do it in 2 different ages, fairly quick game as well. I don't know why I love this game so much, but I really, really do. In fact, they have an expansion out for it called Thingavellir that I still have yet to play. Doug brought it to Hug a MeepleCon, planning to play it, but we never got around to it. Super excited to play that. Doug said Thingavellir expansion is fantastic and a must do.
One that I have enjoyed, put it on my 10x10 2 years ago, a game called Spirit Island. Spirit Island, you're playing as one of the spirits. You are being invaded. They're coming, they're trying to take over and develop the island. You as a spirit, you're trying to prevent this from happening. And so you use different elements that are unique to that spirit. One of my favorite ones was this water element, cards that would allow him to raise the tide and to wash away the colonists that are trying to colonize your island. Very much related into the mythos of these spirits that you're trying to, powers of the land, of the earth, control and mitigate how much your island is getting overpopulated. You have Jagged Earth, Branch and Claw, and there's another one that's coming out this year that's called Feather and Flame. This is a good game. I really enjoy it. Kind of unique. You're playing as the spirit. I like that, where you're not playing as trying to cultivate or colonize the island, but you're trying to prevent that from happening. It just gives the game a whole new twist. Have neither of you guys played Spirit Island?
No, I haven't.
I own it, but I have not played it.
I think you will like it, and you'll find that the game is very much unique.
That's why I bought it. Unfortunately, it's just sat on the shelf, and I haven't read the rules for it.
I would have to refresh myself on the rules as well.
We've got the chance to play Super Bowl Sunday.
Sorry.
I got the chance to play, and Nathan half got the chance to play Reavers of Midgard.
Yeah, I enjoyed the game for the most part. I hate football. I really don't like football. I don't hate football, but I really don't like football. But the TV was there. I couldn't not watch. It's like a car wreck. You wanted to see if there's anybody you knew stuck in there that was just as in much pain as I was watching the game. Appreciate the effort that you made, Andy. I was happy to come to your Super Bowl party. I just wish there wasn't a Super Bowl at your Super Bowl party.
So I set up a table, because I knew Nathan wasn't really into football. Reduced the Mycroft down to a Moriarty-sized table and set it up on just a card table. That way it would fit in the TV room with everybody else. We played Reavers of Midgard. I think both about even for me, between Reavers of Midgard and Champions of Midgard. Probably my two most favorite board games based on Norse mythology. Champions of Midgard, you're gaining dice as your warriors go and fight in different areas. Each of those dice are going to have their strengths and their weaknesses. And when you lose those dice with the Valhalla expansion, the spirits of those dice will come back to you in tokens, and you can spend those on the Valhalla board to gain different benefits. Such an amazing game. I love it. Reavers of Midgard, also using dice. There are 3 different colors of dice. There are blue dice, yellow dice, and red dice. And you're going to be gaining those dice by gaining the different Reavers. When you gain a Reaver card, you get to choose what you want to do with it. There's 3 different options that you can choose to do. You can give yourself like a permanent ability whenever you take a specific action. You can make that person your leader and gain bonuses, or you can just gain dice. Once you have dice, you can start doing actions on the board. You can conquer lands. There's different ways you can conquer lands. 3 different types of resources, different lands that you can conquer. Absolutely wonderful. I love the game. I love the variety of different actions you can do, the different cards, different ways you can score points. You can go on an expedition and fight a sea monster, raid the village, and potentially give you ship upgrades, for example. It's such a wonderful game. I love all the aspects of it. I love the theme. The gameplay itself is great. Both those games are very high in my book, and as far as Norse mythology, those are my favorites.
If you're a fan of Norse mythology, these games are both fantastic. And if you're paying attention to not just playing the game to play the game, but like...
I'm sitting right here, Dave.
But if you're paying attention to what the game is, but when you're playing this game, if you're really thinking about what everything is, thematically, it's really cool.
And as far as that goes, I think Champions of Midgard probably does a little better at that than Reavers of Midgard. That is if you get the expansion, the Valhalla expansion in particular. We've talked about that a couple of times on the podcast. If you're going to get Champions of Midgard, you have to get the Valhalla expansion. Takes the theme home. Get the Valhalla expansion, and it does. It takes that theme home for you. Can dive into that mythology and kind of immerse yourself into it. It makes the game so amazing.
Back in 2012, designers Simone Luciani and Daniele Tazzini made a gem of a game called Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar. This is a game I've only played once to this point. In fact, it was at Hug a Meeple Con South in Harriman. Julie taught me this game. It might have been the last game that we played. It was toward the end of the event. But this is perhaps one of the coolest games that you'll ever play. When they came out with this game, one of the things that they touted it for is that it presents a new game mechanic. They call it dynamic worker placement. Definitely a worker placement game, but the places where you place these workers are moving. In the center of the board is a giant Mayan calendar, but it's a gear at the same time, and all the locations where you can place your workers are on the spokes of these gears, basically. And so you place your worker at the very beginning of the rotation of these smaller gears. You have 2 options. You can either place a worker, 1 or more workers, pay for that in corn, or you can remove a worker. And when you remove a worker, you get to take the action at the location where it is. But it's never at the location where you put it because these gears are constantly moving. You have to try and time things so that you take your worker off on the most beneficial places. The abilities on these locations get better the longer they're on the gear, However, if you miss your opportunity to take it off the gear, that's not good because you just basically have a wasted worker. Very, very unique, and one of the coolest game boards you'll ever see. Especially Julie's copy. She painted her Mayan calendar, and it looks fantastic. Components, they have these little skulls that you use. Some of the locations where you're going, you're basically taking these skulls into the cavern, dedicating them to the gods there. It is a very cool game, very fun game. Really enjoyed it. I want to play it again. The game itself was fun. Overall, just extremely cool.
So I think I played this game with you, Dave, on Yukata a long time ago. That was one of those games that I thought I could bluff my way through. Much like I played a game, Castles of Burgundy, online. Thought Andy had just talked about it not too long ago, so I thought, hey, yeah, I can give this a shot. Yeah, there's some games that you can kind of pick up as you go. Zulkin and Castles of Burgundy were not those games. The board itself is awesome. We have that gear that's moving, and it's moving other wheels also on the board, affecting where your players are and when you want to take those pawns off. That to me was awesome. I really liked that mechanic. I like when boards are more interactive like that. That speaks a lot to the designers of their ability and their skills to be able to come up with something unique and do it well. Yeah, I don't know how to play the game, but I lost terribly. But blown away with the mechanics of it.
When we talked about doing mythology-themed games, King Arthur kind of falls into that. I think Robin Hood probably falls into that too.
I would say so, yeah, the folklore, mythology.
Yeah. So Robin Hood is a game that we saw being played at BGG-Con and looked amazing, and I know that you guys got a chance to play it at BryceCon. What did you think of Robin Hood?
We didn't get to play the full thing. That's a game that comes in, it's not really a legacy game, but it's a story game. Develop the story as you go. We just played the first chapter. I definitely would like to play it again to give it another chance. I was let down. Really, really excited to play this game. It left me wanting more.
That's a pretty good description of it. It also has a very unique board where you lay the board out and you're going to peek under tiles and then you're going to put those tiles back. But the way that the game is going to reuse those tiles in a different game, in a different way to tell a different story, I thought it was very unique. Just like Dave said, I echo that needs an additional play for sure. We only played initial scenario, but I felt that it was played out very well, even though it is very linear, similar to Beowulf, following this set path, but how you resolve that path varies on the players. I like that. But is it one that I'm jumping in joy to go play again? No, and that's mostly because there's other games that I am more excited to play. The Adventures of Robin Hood, I would still like to play and explore. It has this really cool book you read the stories out of, kind of similar to some of the legacy books where you're reading that material out of. But this is a hardbound book. It's a nice touch.
Like I say, it needs another play. I didn't love it, but I could end up loving it after more plays, right?
I totally agree with that.
What we played was essentially the introduction. We certainly haven't experienced all that it has to offer.
I remember when we saw it at BGG-Con, it looked like it was a lot of fun.
Several of our friends from NUG, the Northern Utah Gaming Guild, were playing it, and they very much enjoyed it.
We've talked about several mythology games. Most of them are just great games. The ones I've played, I've really enjoyed. Tend to like that type of theme. Let us know if there's any mythology games that maybe we missed, or that we've talked about some that you really like, and you can share your comments. We'd appreciate it.
Because there are some that we did totally miss. I mean, you have Blood Rage, Rising Sun, Cyclades, Raw, Five Tribes, all in that same category. Didn't get a chance to talk about. There's other games out there. Tell us games that you like.
Yeah, what are some of your favorites? Typically, we have a giant list of games. This was a fairly small list for us, and I love a lot of mythology, these types of games. If you have some favorites, please let us know. Love to try them out.
Until next time.
We'll see you dusting off your hieroglyphs and figuring out that deep, dark mythology at the game table.
As always, we want to thank you for listening.
Check out our website. We have all sorts of cool things there. Love those blogs. Get a deeper look into the writing side of Meeple Nation.
Join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. I look forward to seeing you there.
Follow us on Twitter, @MeepleNation. We also have Instagram.
Under the same name. We also want to thank our sponsor, GameToppersLLC.com.
We love their product. They have so much goodness out there.
And we also want to thank Braiding Detergent for our music.
Meeple Nation podcast is sponsored by Game Toppers LLC. Got.com? LLC.com. You got com? Game Toppers LLC is for you.
And then jump over to our website, Meeple Nation. MeepleNation.com.
Got com? Kind of a shorter list as we try to go into all these. What's so funny? I mean, I know I screwed up a couple of times, but I didn't think it was that funny.
I don't know, man. One of those moments, I guess.